I always think about what are we going to talk about on these meetings? What's the topic for tomorrow going to be? Because I'm always trying to think of it the day before, and I hate like going over the same things all the time and boring things and things we've already talked about. Some things we've talked about in the past that a lot of the new guys haven't heard, which is good. So I threw it in a ChatGPT and I said, give me some topics for the morning meeting, right? And it gave me a bunch of different things. So, and I didn't like them, so I said, give me a few more topics. So, so this is what we got. We got some choices here. We got invisible work builds reputation. It's talking about just because a client doesn't see every step doesn't mean it doesn't matter. Precision and pruning, mowing lines, mulching edges, behind the scenes efforts still show up in the results. Your name isn't on the truck, but your work is. This is something we've talked about before. Read the room, customer body language. This was an interesting one. Know when to engage and when to give space. We'll talk about this. So we do something in the office, I probably have talked about this, where all the managers take a test. It's called an R3 assessment, where we take a 50-question test. I think it's 50. Is it 50? Anybody know who took it? Yeah. And it tests our personality and how we are as our personality, whether we're a driver, an influencer, an analyzer, or a stabilizer. And why we do that is we take this test and to see how we are, but we also have, like I know Mike's R3 assessment, and I know what Mike's personality traits are. So if I have to have a conversation with Mike, I know the right way to structure that conversation. I know Katie's personality traits from her R3 assessment. I know Emily's, and that's helpful for me. So if I have to have a conversation with this person, I know how to make it an effective conversation instead of just, and I'll explain this a little better in a minute, instead of just saying it my way and it not coming across the correct way, right? So I learned a lot from that exercise. One of them was, yeah, that's great that I now have Katie's R3 assessment and I can read how to communicate with her, or I have Elise's R3 and I can know how to communicate with her. But what happens when we have a customer that we don't know their R3? They didn't take the test. How do we communicate with that customer? So you got to recognize different body languages that these customers will put out, right? And you'll know. So if we show up to a customer's house and we knock on the door because we're going to do a cleanup, and the guy comes out and he's on his phone and he's just, million miles an hour. Hey, you guys are here to do my cleanup? Yep, we're going to just take care of it. Just take care of it. Well, he's a high driver. Now you recognize that's how this guy is. He's not an influencer. He doesn't want to talk to you. He's not an analyzer. He's not out there walking around the beds and checking and making sure that this, and this is done. And he's definitely not a stabilizer. He doesn't care if everything's going smooth or not. He's a high driver. So how do you communicate with that guy and make it an effective conversation with him? You don't say, can you just come outside here and can we talk? That wouldn't work, right? You say, no problem, sir, we got it. You know what? We're going to do what we think we're going to do. We'll come back, knock on the door in a bit, and you can double check it. And he'd be, yeah, great, thank you. Thanks, guys. That's a way to communicate with that guy. Now, his wife, she might be different. She might come to the door and you say, hey, Mrs. Jones, we're here to do your landscaping project. And she might have a magazine with pictures of plants and stuff in her hands, and she wants to talk. Well, she's an influencer, and she's an analyzer. She wants to analyze everything. So now how we communicate with her is totally different, right? We don't say to her, yeah, no, yeah, whatever. We're going to do our thing. We'll check at the end with you and see if you're happy and walk away from her. You can't do that, right? Now you got to say to her, oh, what do you have? Let me see the pictures. Yeah, we can do that, and we can do this, and talk about what excites her about the property. So it's a matter of reading your customer and reading their personality. Goes the same way. That's in a good situation, right? That's when we show up at the job and we're talking about the job. So what happens if there's a conflict on the job? And we might work the opposite to de-escalate a situation. If we have a customer that comes out and he's a real high driver and he wants to argue because we're late. Well, how are you going to respond to him? Now you're not going to act like a driver to him, and you're not going to say, well, I'm late because of this, and yell back at him. That doesn't work. That's where we back down. but you want to just recognize how these people are, what their personality traits are, and how to communicate the best way with them. So knowing who your customer is, and knowing who your coworker is, and knowing how to cater their personality helps resolve conflict. Okay. One other thing I want to talk in here: speak with pride, not apology. How we talk about the company affects how others see us. Totally different topic, right? So never blame the office, a schedule, or a coworker. It's bad luck. If you're working on a crew and a client comes out or a customer comes out and has a problem with how something's done, don't ever say, well, he did it, talking about your coworker, or or blame the product. Yeah, well, these plants that we're installing, if the customer comes out and says, oh, this hydrangea doesn't look good, you don't say, well, this is all we get at the office, or you don't put the office down or put your coworkers down or anything like that in front of a customer, because that causes them to lose confidence in us as a company, lose trust in us, and and we don't want that. They lose trust in our product, and once you lose that trust, it's a lot harder to gain it back. So, be confident when you talk to them. We'll take care of that. Yes, ma'am. No problem. I know you're not happy with that. We'll take care of it. We'll get it straightened out. That's the answer. Not, oh, it's because he doesn't know what he's doing. Like, you never want to say that. Well, oh yeah, he didn't do a good job edging that bed. Okay, you think we didn't do a great job? We'll take care of it. We'll re-edge it. That's the answer. Not, he's not great at edging beds. I don't know why he's there doing it. That's not a good answer. Or I don't know why this guy got sent to this job. He doesn't usually do this, or whatever. It's not a good look to the customer. Or if you're unsure about something and somebody asks you a question, the best thing you can say, instead of lying, is say, I'm not sure about that. I'm going to figure out the answer. I'll get back to you. Let me check on that for you. People respect that. One last one. This one was a good one. Stop and look, thinking like a property owner. Step back and assess a property like it's yours. What would bother you if this was your home or business? That's an interesting one. When you guys pull up on a job and you look at a new house, you pull up, not a new house, a new property for us. What's the first thing that you think of when you look at that place? Well, you're probably looking at the landscaping. You're probably saying either, oh, this place is going to suck, or this place is going to be easy because it's clean, right? That's probably the first thing you're looking at. When we're done doing the job, step back and look at it. What's different now from the time that you got there? What does that property look like now compared to how we started? Does it look good? Would you be happy? Would you be satisfied with the job that we did if you had to pay yourself to do that job? I say that all the time. Ask yourself at the end of the day, would you pay yourself the same amount of money that you got paid today to do the job that you did? And if the answer is no, consistently, then that's a problem. But going back to this, thinking like a property owner, before you walk off that job, take a walk around. Is there if there's a Dunkin' Donuts cup on the grass, even if we had nothing to do with that grass and we were doing a planting in the backyard and there's a Dunkin' Donuts cup in the front yard, pick it up, right? That goes a long way. When a client looks out the window and sees you do something extra that you weren't hired to do. We do it all the time when we're walking around. I know I do it, and I've seen my own guys do it if we're walking around with a customer on a job walk just to look at a job, and there's a one weed in the bed. I'll be walking with a client, and I'll bend over and I'll pull the weed in her bed while I'm walking, and I'll hold it in my hand as I walk around the property. I'm looking at the job because she wants a patio in the backyard, and I just pulled the weed in her front bed. She might hire us because I did that, because she thinks, wow, that goes a long way, just a little bit. So there's that. Take pride in your work, take pride in the equipment, take pride in the property that you're working on. Yep. So anyway, any comments or questions? No?